I am testifying under oath in a courtroom that smells like lemon cleaner and stale coffee. And the judge keeps peering over her glasses as if she can see the plot twist before I say it. Our lawyer whispers, "Stay calm, keep it American relatable." Which is funny because this whole thing feels like it was written by Reddit Betrayal Diaries with a studio note that says, "More fireworks." I clear my throat and begin at the end. Like any good relationship stories do when they are secretly revenge stories. My wife and her female boss are seated 2 tables away with matching legal pads and mismatched expressions. The boss pretending to be a beacon of empowerment. My wife pretending to be the victim of a cheating stories smear campaign. And our teen daughter, cool-headed as a chess champion at a school tournament, stacking binders like skyscrapers of proof. The bailiff asks for quiet. The gallery hushes. I start with the night our daughter served papers like a varsity pitcher throwing heat. But to make sense of that strikeout, I need to tell you how Little League, Costco samples, and an HOA Facebook group turned into a family drama so elaborate it deserves its own season on an app called Reddit Revenge Plus. See, a year earlier, our daughter had clocked the little rhythms no one else noticed. How the late strategy sessions with my wife's boss coincided with the boss's Instagram stories of late-night innovation featuring a wine glass cameo. How an Uber receipt would vanish from the joint account right after the phrase "circle back" appeared in a text thread, and then a lipstick mark would appear on the rim of my wife's thermos. Classic cheating wife Reddit foreshadowing, except the wife in question didn't cheat with a man in a predictable cable drama arc. She chose her boss, a queen pin of LinkedIn posts about authenticity, who wore monochrome power suits and posted Monday motivation memes while taking credit for our family stories unraveling thread by thread. I am not naive. I have watched my fair share of relationship stories on streaming at 1:30 a.m. while microwaving leftover pizza. But I never thought we'd become one of those betrayal stories where the affair is the least shocking element. What got me wasn't the gender. It was the audacity. The boardroom-to-bedroom promotion plan disguised as career development. And yet, I didn't explode. I did what emotionally constipated suburban dads do. Mowed the lawn in straight lines, listened to crime podcasts while unloading Costco bulk paper towels, pretended my wife's new perfume was just a seasonal sample from Sephora. In therapy terms, which I learned from our daughter's guidance counselor while pretending to volunteer for the PTA raffle, I was emotionally buffering. Then our daughter decided buffering was for streaming, not for families. She began to document. She saved screenshots, dates, and receipts with the professionalism of an auditor and the flair of a storyteller trained by Reddit stories. Meanwhile, my wife grew bolder, insisting that our family drama stories were actually a pivot. She said her boss saw her and met her where she was, which sounded like workplace coaching, but felt like a carefully curated infidelity stories carousel. There were whispers at the office about favoritism, budget lines that twitched like tired eyelids, and an intern who had logged misleading entries in the corporate travel system. At home, food went cold. The dog picked sides, ours. The boss's car, a sleek EV that purred like a cat with a law degree, began appearing on our block at hours usually reserved for insomnia and DoorDash confessions. Still, I waited for my wife to blink first. She didn't blink. She promoted herself. By the time I finally confronted her, she had turned "I'm sorry" into a TED Talk about reinvention. She said she was rewriting the script, which I thought was a fine concept if we had not been co-authors. She said this was not a cheating wife story. It was a liberation narrative. She said the heart wants what it wants. Our daughter, from the top stair, said, "And HR wants what it wants too." The next morning, the future slammed into the present, and the legal revenge trailer began playing in our living room. Subpoenas, compliance training records that mysteriously contradicted expense reports, a Slack channel export that read like a novella of emojis and power imbalances. My wife said I was making it bigger than it was. I said she had made it bigger than we were. The boss smiled like a CEO cutting a ribbon on a bulldozed neighborhood. I should mention, because this is the era of conspiracy and Twiat Ummu crossovers, that for weeks I felt watched by an algorithm, as though the universe had toggled a switch labeled infidelity stories. Boost, and billboards on my commute started speaking in captions. Betrayal stories, family revenge, Reddit betrayal. The algorithm knew before I did. The day our daughter pressed print on her binders, the printer whispered, "This is about to be a season finale." That's where my testimony begins. With the end, two women flanked by attorneys, my daughter with her war room calm, and me finally learning how to speak in plain American without apologizing for the plot. Somewhere, a narrator from Cheating Wife Reddit said, "Buckle up," and the gavel, like a metronome, said time. The middle is always messy, so I'll give it to you with the parody turned up and the serious turned sideways. Imagine PTA night staged like a courtroom improvisation class. Folding chairs, lukewarm coffee, an art display of ceramic whales, and parents weaponizing small talk. I'm there, nodding at someone explaining travel baseball like Supreme Court jurisprudence. Meanwhile, my phone buzzes with a calendar invite titled Performance Alignment. Translation: my wife's boss wants to align after hours, and the only KPI on the agenda is desire. I say nothing. I practice American Stoicism, which is really just target therapy. I walk slow aisles, touch throw pillows I will never buy, compare different kinds of almond milk like it's a referendum on my masculinity. At home, our daughter runs a war room disguised as homework. She pins timelines on a corkboard like a TV detective, but with pastel sticky notes and gel pens. She quotes case law as if it were dialogue in family stories that end well. Power imbalance, she says. Misuse of company assets, she says. Hostile work environment, she says. I ask if we're overreacting, because that's my job in the middle part, and she says, "Dad, we're underreacting politely." On weekends, our cul-de-sac becomes a Greek chorus. Mr. Next Door newsletter mows his lawn diagonally and asks if I've seen the markets. Mrs. HOA posts about trash bins and then DMs my wife heart emojis and "You go, Queen," as if private admiration cancels public vows. The boss arrives wearing sunglasses too large for our zip code, steps out with the smirk of a person who captions her selfies "CEO of my life," and waltzes into our kitchen to discuss deliverables, which is now code for seduction. The dog growls. Our daughter presses record on nothing, but remembers everything. To keep this rooted in American realism, I will say the affair was not cinematic. It was logistics. It was calendar slots and shared docs, expense codes, and a hotel with corporate rates near the freeway. I learned that betrayal in suburbia is the art of making the extraordinary look like weekly status updates. The conspiracy angle? The universe started glitching. Streetlights flickered when the EV passed. Spotify recommended breakup anthems during my Focus playlist. The smoke alarm beeped at 3:17 a.m., 3 nights in a row. Just the exact hour the Slack timestamp suggested, someone updated the leadership off-site deck from a suite with beige curtains. Coincidence? Sure. But Twiat Ummu makes grief easier to hold because it gives the chaos choreography. I clung to patterns like life rafts. That's when our daughter went from observant to strategic. She attended a youth law clinic at the community center next to the ice rink and came home with a packet labeled "Your Rights in School, Work, and Home." She tabbed sections about workplace relationships when there is power over pay or promotion. She highlighted policy lines that might sink a yacht. She discovered that when a supervisor has intimate relations with a direct report, especially while allocating budgets and opportunities, whole departments end up covered in liability glitter. She collected screenshots of the boss praising my wife in emails at 2:02 a.m., then approving her discretionary bonus at 8:11 a.m. She found out the boss had asked an intern to reconcile travel receipts that looked like a scavenger hunt of client engagement. Except the client never existed. And somewhere, because every cheating story's mythos needs a wild rumor, our town's gossip wheel spun up an old saga about another household, where a husband refuses to sign birth certificate after a cheating wife gives birth to mixed baby. A legend stitched from hearsay and summer wine. It wasn't our story. But the way folks swapped it into ours like a meme made clear how family drama stories get mashed together by people who prefer spectacle to facts. Our daughter cut clean from that rumor mill and stuck to evidence. She drafted a report so meticulous it could have replaced your morning coffee. Emails, Venmo notes, timestamps, doorbell camera logs where the boss's laughter chimes at 12:48 a.m. She never slut-shamed, never sneered. She argued ethics and power, money and career ladders. She said, "There's a reason HR exists, and it's not to decorate onboarding slides." I kept thinking about love, about how I used to catch my wife's eye at block parties and read an entire life there. The parody part of this middle is that love had been rebranded in the meeting invite, put behind a login, turned into an acronym. On a Tuesday night, my wife staged a miniature TED Talk in our living room about self-actualization, and the boss nodded like a metronome set to yes. The dog left the room. Our daughter said, "You're turning our house into a workplace romance pilot episode without consent." My wife said, "You're being dramatic." Our daughter said, "Watch me be useful instead." The binders multiplied. The printer coughed. I stood in the doorway of my own home like the understudy to my life. Somewhere, because conspiracy and fantasy like to link arms, I had a dream that a giant Reddit thread walked into our kitchen wearing a judge's robe and said, "Court is now in session." When I woke up, subpoenas were on the table like placemats. The case we didn't ask for, our daughter's plan, arrived dressed as calm. She asked me to drive her to the community center on Main Street, the one with motivational posters and a vending machine that eats your quarters unless you press the button like a safe cracker. She met with a pro bono attorney who treated teens like jurors in their own lives. She explained everything with the clarity of a spine. Supervisor-subordinate relationship, resource allocation, travel authorizations, power dynamics, and how all of it turned a cheating wife short story into a legal novella. She did not weaponize sexuality. She weaponized policy. She said, "Affairs among equals are messy. Affairs where one person controls the other's paycheck are radioactive." The attorney listened, then leaned back. "You're not bringing the court your family's heartbreak," she said. "You're bringing the company's liability." Discovery turned our life into a paper blizzard. Subpoenas went out. The company's HR, jolted from its nap, found a spine it had misplaced between Casual Friday and All Hands. The boss's emails landed like anvils on cartoon coyote plots. Memes that once felt harmless were suddenly exhibits. The travel receipts had déjà vu stamped on them. The compliance training timestamps had the uncanny habit of matching with wine bar check-ins. Our daughter testified in a deposition with a politeness that decimated. The opposing counsel tried to rattle her with condescension. She took it as fuel. She said "sir" a lot and then handed him another tabbed page. I watched, stunned, as my child executed a family revenge that wasn't about screaming in kitchens, but about placing facts in order and letting gravity do the rest. The parody wrote itself. The boss claimed mentorship. The spreadsheets called it favoritism. The boss proclaimed women's empowerment. The expense ledger called it misuse of funds. My wife insisted boundaries were intact. The Slack export showed boundaries shaped like a paperclip. The gallery at the hearing was a familiar American cross-section. Retired couple who walks the mall, teenager with a hoodie that says civics, a man who smelled faintly of barbecue, a woman from down the block who always says, "It's so sad," like a punctuation mark. And because reality never misses a chance to cross-promote, someone in the back row live-typed a synopsis that will almost certainly be posted as Reddit Betrayal the minute the judge says, "Adjourned." The fantasy angle crept in, the courtroom lights flickering at the exact frequency of memory. In my head, I saw alternate timelines break open like geodes. One where we patched it up, one where I discovered it earlier, one where we swapped coasts and tried becoming different people, one where I became bitter enough to join those brutal cheating wife Reddit threads that talk more about punishment than repair. But this timeline belonged to our daughter, who refused to become a cautionary tale. She asked for injunctions, not insults. She asked for transparency and accountability. She held power to its own rulebook. Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, rumor tried yet again to lace itself through our facts. The old urban legend about the husband refuses to sign birth certificate after the cheating wife gives birth to mixed baby did another lap around group chats. Our daughter, in testimony, slaughtered rumor with daylight. That's not our story. Our story is about policy and power. We're not here to weaponize identities. We're here to measure conduct. The judge perked up. Opposing counsel fumbled. I felt proud in a way that surprised me, like watching your kid parallel park perfectly on a hill. As discovery closed, settlement whispers began to skim the air like dragonflies. The company wanted out of the burn. The boss wanted her brand unstained. My wife wanted an exit ramp from a freeway that wouldn't end. But our daughter said, "We finish. We put the truth in the record. We show how people in power use ideals as par while they practice exceptions at night." And so we did. Step by step, document by document, until the skeleton of the story could stand without us leaning on it, until the pattern was visible to anyone with eyes. Not a love story, not even an infidelity story's melodrama, but a system story where betrayal hides in budget lines and promotion memos. The courtroom's AC hummed. The gavel reflected light. Somewhere a podcast producer probably titled an episode, "The Teen Who Took Down Her Mom's Boss." And some algorithm slotted us beside cheating wife story, family drama, Reddit stories as if we'd always belonged there. Maybe that's American culture too. Everything gets a category. Our daughter refused the easy one and built a new shelf. The aftermath we call justice. The ruling wasn't fireworks, it was math. Findings of fact, violations of policy, consequences that read like the credits of a prestige miniseries. Termination of the boss for cause, clawbacks of bonuses, mandatory audits, and a corporate statement that used the word regret the way apologies do when lawyers edit them. The company settled with conditions and sunlight. HR, late but present, promised a safer workplace for all, a phrase our daughter underlined, not with triumph, but with a pen that wrote, "We'll see." My wife's world came undone at the rate of a calendar unsyncing. Without the boss's shield, the story lost its branding. Neighbors stopped sending crown emojis and started saying I had no idea, which is the suburbs' way of tiptoeing back from complicity. We separated in a quiet that felt like snow. Divorce papers weren't revenge, they were housekeeping. Our daughter asked for therapy and got it. Asked for boundaries and got them. Asked that our story not become a content farm for those who defend cruelty, and we agreed. If you're looking for the part where I flip a table and join a mob chanting cheating wife Reddit slogans, it's not here. If you're looking for the part where our daughter ruins people on socials, it's not here either. What happened instead was stranger and more American than drama. We made a record. We put it where records go. We made the private public in the specific way that protects futures. And then we went home and had spaghetti on paper plates because the dishes were all in boxes. The parody did not stop. It never does. Because the same week the ruling came down, the boss posted a self-filmed video about learning from adversity in a new blazer. And a subset of the internet applauded like seals trained to clap at any sound resembling empowerment. But a bigger quiet held. The quiet of colleagues who no longer had to pretend they didn't see what they saw. The quiet of interns who watched someone in power face consequences. The quiet of our house at 9 p.m. when our daughter's bedroom lamp glowed over a civics textbook. The fantasy didn't stop either. I still dream in alternate edits. In one we patch it, in another we move, in another. My wife chooses accountability early, and we invent a new ending. In the earliest draft of those dreams, the conspiracy of the universe is simple. Loyalty is magnetic, transparency is armor, and love is a job with no travel budget. I wake up and remember the truth. Sometimes family revenge means replacing rage with structure. Sometimes betrayal stories become safety manuals. Months later, our daughter gives a talk at school titled Power, Policy, and Us. Not a viral hit. Not even a trending tag in Reddit Betrayal. Just a room of teenagers eating donuts and listening. She says, "Adults talk about accountability like it's a punishment. It's actually a foundation." She doesn't mention our names. She doesn't need to. I sit in the back where the coffee tastes like the same coffee from that first day in court. I imagine someone exhaling, relieved that drama didn't eat us alive. On the walk home, the dog sniffs doubly at the hydrangeas. The mail contains bills and a flyer for a community picnic. I think about titles, because everything needs one for the algorithm. Cheating stories, relationship stories, family stories, infidelity stories, family drama stories. The feeds will call this a cheating wife story, a wife cheating short story with corporate flair. They'll tag it Reddit Betrayal Diaries because that's how the internet keeps track. But my daughter, who hates summary boxes, says, "Dad, call it what it is." We drew a map out. And that's what we did. In the thick of rumor, no, we did not reenact that tabloid saga where a husband refuses to sign birth certificate or where a cheating wife gives birth to mixed baby like it's a twist designed by a cruel writer. We chose facts over spectacle, law over legend, repair over rage. Our aftermath is boring in the best way. New apartment key, new routines, Wednesday night tacos, a dog who sleeps at the foot of my bed because dogs always pick sides, but choose gentleness when the war is over. Do I miss my wife? I miss the version of her that laughed at dumb commercials and forgot where she'd put her phone and tried 3 times before parallel parking. I don't miss the version of her who outsourced her soul to an org chart. I wish her therapy and truth. I wish her boss the same. In another universe, they learned the lesson without scorched earth. In this one, we learned it for them. The judge's gavel is a memory now. The lemon cleaner scent replaced by fresh paint in a place where no one rehearses slogans before talking about love. At night, I scroll less. When I do scroll, the algorithm still offers me a carousel labeled family revenge, betrayal stories, Reddit stories, cheating wife Reddit, but I swipe past. I bookmark a recipe for skillet chicken and a video of a dog that opens cabinet doors. The future is not cinematic. It's well lit. My daughter says, "Justice is just making room." And for once, I understand every word without needing a category.